1792
I'm not going to show your face, but I'm going to record it. Go ahead.
or late 1700s.
But
The business guys had Reelfoot Lake, but it wasn't a lake.
But it wasn't a lake.
It wasn't a lake then. When the earthquake happened, and Boone and them felt that over there in Kentucky. But when the
it rattled the bell in
rung
Boston.
the bell in Philadelphia and all that. But businessmen down there, they got scared because they had to go to court now because they had already had considered taking the Troy, which was the county seat. This was a few years later. They'd already considered it a few years earlier. The businessmen down there, now all of a sudden there's a lake there. It's no longer woods. And so they had a wood grant from the federal government. It's no longer a wood grant, now it's a lake.
Right.
And so these lake people, fisheries and different people said, no, it belongs to us now. Your rights as the woods, you can't cut the woods. They still continued cutting all
Well, did you see where the horizon rose right there in Hornbeak, where you got such deep cliffs right there?
It's going right on back. That's where it come out of right there, all through there.
Ain't it?
It was pushed up.
It was pushed up right back.
Nauvoo over here, same way, is all pushed up.
What was it?
Little Nauvoo Hills over here in Dyer County.
Right.
Right there between Pagoda and Dyersburg. That little hill, you got Bluff Road.
Right.
Yeah, that little hill right there was pushed up. All over here around Cat Corner. All at Laster's Corner. Going all the way, I forgot the name of that place over by Shawtown, over by...
Have you ever been to Nickapoo?
all
On the other side of Ridgely?
I know all about Lake County. I wrote a book about it.
You did.
Yeah, it is.
So you know about Nickapoo?
Mady, Mooring, Sheep Ridge,
Right.
Blue Hole.
There were some heck of battles back in there, wasn't it?
Tank number 2.
Wasn't there some heck of skirmishes over there, wasn't it?
It wasn't so much because at this point when Memphis had and Memphis was actually the capital for like a day or two. It wasn't too long, but after they realized that Chattanooga was dropping, and they were worried about Sherman, some other things going on, and some other generals, and so they decided to move it on over to. They knew they was coming toward Nashville, and they first thought about going to Chattanooga, and they said, let's not go that way.
Was there a skirmish right up here on top of the hill?
At Nauvoo?
No, right up here where the cemetery is, where the Confederate flag flies.
That's where the colonel lived. That's where one of the Confederate colonels lived.
Oh, really?
And they gave him that, he got that land grant.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, from that.
So there wasn't actually a skirmish there?
No, he had a home there. He had a cabin there years ago.
I see.
It's kind of like Howell ground, around.
I see. You are aware that Obion originally was just
Obion, Lake County was Obion.
I mean, the town of Obion was originally just a village?
Did you know that the county of Obion was originally, the county of Lake County was Obion County? Did you know that?
Who surveyed that out?
Well, that's what all come about from those businessmen that wanted that rights to that woods.
See, Davy Crockett surveyed a lot of that down in there.
Exactly, and he made it to where Troy was supposed to be the county seat. But then that was later. That's a little bit later.
Really?
Yeah. After the earthquake.
Right.
All right. This businessman didn't want to give woods rights. The water rights was now coming into play, and they said, well, you can't use that because who's to know that earthquake?
How big is that lake? 14,000?
It's a pretty good sized lake. I don't remember exactly how many acres is on that linear.
See, I was down on the point the other day and got stuck. You ever go down to the point?
You talking about on the north end of it or the northern end of the lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, way on down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you talking about on?
No, I was down by the Mississippi River.
Where you're down over toward the Hickman side.
Right.
Over in there. Okay. Yeah.
Right. I got in there and got stuck Sunday. It was muddy back in there.
There was some activity down there, some Confederate activity and some Union activity through there.
Was it?
That's some skirmishes over by Kate's Landing, back behind Kate's Landing over there.
Did you know that Beach Ridge over here, that they call Beach Ridge, on backside of it, where Gibson County joins Obion County and Weakley County, did you know that that's called District Number 7? They call it Number 7, Old Number 7?
No, but there was something about Reeves that was in some of that Crockett stuff. Something about Reeves.
Crockett Bottom.
Something over in there somewhere.
Yeah, from 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 Hopin all the way back was all Crockett Bottom all the way back to the Reeves, and to this day there's still a big lake over there called Crockett Lake over there.
Well, did you know that?
Do you know anything about the big cypress tree?
Yeah, well, which has been gone since the 70s, I think.
But did you study it any towards how big it was? It was considered one of the biggest cypress trees east of
14 feet across or
13.
13
feet
yeah.
From bark to bark. And what was it, 26-foot circumferences?
Anything about Lake County? I know anything about Obion County. I know some. Anything about Dyer County?
Did you know that originally David Crockett actually homesteaded a while there in Dresden before he set up a place over in
close to Rutherford?
Close to Rutherford before they actually took his mother's cabin there in Rutherford?
Well, the actual place where she died was not in the place is out of town about 2 miles coming back this way.
Who was she originally, do you know?
Yeah, hold on.
She had to come from over there in Madison, right? The state of Madison?
I don't know.
You know that there was a state of Madison, right?
Rebecca.
You know about the state of Madison, right?
I've heard of it.
That was over there where it joins North Carolina and the eastern Tennessee. That was whenever it was still territories before they cycled it out towards making Tennessee.
Go back Tennessee history and look up how many different state capitals there were in about a 3-month period in Tennessee, and Memphis had it for a few days, and I think, and then when all that happened down there in Atlanta, and when they marched on down, to
right,
and all that, then they got worried about it.
They burned Atlanta down to the ground,
and then they come up from the south to come up to get up to Memphis, and when Memphis fell, they moved it again, and you'd be surprised the number of little bitty burgs and villas and towns between here. They just moved every other day. They'd move the town. They'd move the capital and the records and everything.
Did you know that Memphis, Tennessee, was projected to have been the size of downtown Atlanta? It was supposed to have been the greatest southern city of the South. Did you know that?
You know, there's still things in that river that nobody knows what's in there. There's still we're talking about from this Ferdinand DeSoto and all the way up. You know, there's all kinds. They still finding stuff, and some people are knowing about it, and some people ain't.
As far as Civil War ships and
before Civil War,
Civil War stuff is going back to the Columbian days.
We're talking 15, 16, 1700s right in there.
No way.
Yeah, and like
really,
like Ferdinand DeSoto,
the Spaniards?
Mississippi was named after Ferdinand DeSoto.
No, it wasn't.
The DeSoto County.
No.
That was all part of. They found some parts of his ship in the river.
The mighty Mississippi was named after him.
He fled, and when he fled, and they said he fled, and somebody else in history said they disputed that and said he didn't flee. They was all sick with some kind of disease they got from the Spaniards, and so they went up this river. This river was the mighty Mississippi, and somewhere around Fort Pillow, back down toward Memphis, somewhere in there, it was the last anybody seen him, and somewhere in there is his. Everything he took from the Spaniards.
There's some river rats down in there, isn't it? They got houses down there still on, what, 25, 30-foot stilts down in there? I'm talking about people down in there that you don't want to go down there messing with them if you don't know them.
I went to a place today.
Of course, there's places like that up in eastern Kentucky.
I went to a place today, earlier this morning. I thought everybody was coming out with a banjo picking Deliverance. They lived in a school bus from the 1930s. This old school bus.
Where was you at? In Kentucky?
1939 here in Tennessee.
No way.
Yeah, and I come to a dead end of a road. You had to make a right or you had to make a left.
Where
you made
was
a right,
you at?
You make a right. You're back this side of Pillowville, back over in there, back this side of Pillowville.
Palmersville?
In between there. Now go back. in there a little bit. And it was.
Was there an old store back there? Because Dad said there's an old store back in there somewhere. Whenever you walk into it, it's like walking back in the 20s.
If you look at these old movies and you look back at these old little bitty buses, the little rounded dome buses, a guy come out pulling his suspenders and come walking outside.
Some of these people around here are just...
I met some people over toward the...
They're good-natured people and they really do mean well. But whenever it comes to them being open-minded and whenever it comes to them knowing things that's going on worldly around in other parts of the world?
They don't want to know.
They don't want to know.
They don't want to know.
They don't want to know. They don't want to expand. They don't want to evolve.
They're good folk, but they stick to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way it is.
But you're talking about this levee down here, the Tupate levee, that it originally went to Union City, and the reason why Union City was named Union City.
That's because the railroad, they met up with another railroad that was there, and that's where that's where they joined, and they crossed.
Well, the Trail of Tears wasn't that far south.
No. And
The Trail of Tears was further north.
but just a little bit further north. It wasn't too far up it was around Columbus, Kentucky, right up around there.
That's where the Trail of Tears
yeah,
was.
where they stretched the chain and they went over to Missouri.
Right.
But that chain had nothing to do with the Trail of Tears. But
they also come through with the Trail of Tears down there at Savannah.
well, see, did you know
That was the ones coming up through Alabama.
a lot of my kinfolks is from Columbus in that area,
Oh, they are.
and a lot of them know that town that you go to where those redoubts and everything are that's up there in the hills, that was north of the original Columbus, the town. My aunts and uncles knew where the original town was. They had to move it because it got flooded. This is before 1937.
All right.
This is
Do
back
you
in
know any
18
of the history about LBL, Land
no.
Between the Lakes,
What did I hear about that?
where they moved them all out? TVA flooded all that
Oh,
area
yeah,
whenever
that-
they
yeah,
built the dams
yeah,
and
that
stuff
was-
down
yeah.
over there. And then a few years later, in the early '60s, Kennedy
Well,
flew
who they
over.
couldn't buy them out for dirt.
Yeah, Kennedy flew over and then declared it all something and turned it into a natural resource or something like that, to where the state made them, forced them out of there. And I guess some of them had, some of them made up their minds they was going to die.
Yeah, they wouldn't. That's their homestead.
That was their homestead.
That's where they lived.
But man, there was a lot of moonshining and stuff up into that area.
The Night Riders.
The Night Riders, yeah.
Okay.
You know anything about them?
Yeah, I do.
Do you really?
The Night Riders. It ain't going on tape, but I know them.
Right.
I know about what went on,
Right.
and from points of view of my family,
Do you think that they had a good cause?
the cause was the reason. What I was telling you, because they never did settle that dispute between the woods and the water rights. After the earthquake, when the water come in, it became a lake.
Did you know originally over in Italy that the mafia was actually began as a good thing?
It's a way to keep people quiet and mind their own damn business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you're saying that the Night Riders had good motives?
Well, they shouldn't have done what they done. From the get-go, they messed up. And from history has proven, well, they took one of them guys, one of them escaped, and he ratted on them. They hung one of them, and they're going to hang the other one, the businessman that owned the wood rights.
But how did the Night Riders get intertwangled with the Ku Klux Klan? And if you really get to studying about the Ku Klux Klan wasn't necessarily all about hanging black people. It was about Philip Morris and the tobacco industry, that you could get more money down south than you could up north. And that's where all that stuff started. That's where it originated, the heart of it. Over greed, over money.
Well, the original was when old boy over in South Carolina, somewhere over there, North Carolina or South Carolina, right above Florida, back when Andrew Jackson was president. And this old boy come down and he got off one of these boats, or he's from up north or somewhere, but he come down, he got off a ship right down there, and they was doing, in the harbor, they done a lot of trade there, a lot of, cotton, a lot of trade going on.
Yeah.
And
A lot of commerce.
this old boy happened to be back in the day, he helped this old man, and this old man was an assayer.
He was.
Yeah. And this old boy was walking these creeks one day, and he happened to trip over some rocks. He kept seeing before that happened, he visited this old man that owned this land.
I see.
And this old man had a door prop, and he's had it there for 50, 60 years.
Right.
Man, and he'd open up the door and hold it open, barn door, whatever it was.
Right.
And he had a little post there, some kind of little something. People do a little bit of trading post. And And that old man, when that boy walked in there for the first time, he bumped his foot on that little stone. And he said, my God, it's a heavy stone. Turned out it's a big old nugget of gold. That's before the 49ers. That's before the gold rush out west. It started out here in the east.
Yeah,
Okay.
fool's gold.
Okay.
Fool's gold there in
No,
Jackson.
no, that was real gold. And
No, it wasn't real gold out there in East Tennessee.
No, it wasn't East Tennessee. It's on over.
But now there was a lot of silver panhandlers up in that area.
No, he found that. He found that, and the guy said, the man told him, "That sure is a heavy rock." He said, "Man, I don't know what kind of rock it is, but that creek's full of them out there." And,
I'll be darned.
And he told him, he said, "Can I go look?" And he showed him that creek, and showed him. He said, "Can I get one of these?" He said, "Well, if you fool enough to buy a rock," he said, "you fool enough to buy the one I got holding my door open." He bought that rock, and it was gold. The assayer, he went back to where he learned his trade. It wasn't an assayer's trade, but he was like an assistant. And the guy said, "Where'd you get this?" And he told him, he said, "Can you get more like that?" And
Right.
he said, Eureka, basically, he found it.
Right.
And so they found the gold. Then they had a problem. They had to keep it quiet. Well, this guy had a big mouth. But they had to keep his gold quiet. He went back, that guy, and basically the second or third time he went back down there, he wasn't quiet. He had some
Homesteaders
people
done
with him.
moved in.
Everybody's done up and down the banks,
Oh, man.
getting all these rocks. Well, that's around the time Andrew Jackson was president.
Right.
And now they got a problem. They got Indians in Florida. And they got Indians all up in northern Florida.
I studied them.
In Georgia, all over in South Carolina.
Right.
And
I studied them up there.
They're sitting where these creeks with this fancy rock
Right,
is.
right.
And they got to figure out a way to get rid of them.
Right.
That's what started the Trail of Tears.
That's what started Trail of Tears.
That's when they started moving
But
them.
I also studied after the effect, whenever the
They marched.
whenever the big boom took off towards the logging boom, man, they would freaking drag big old trees, probably 3 times the size of me and you put together, and just drag them through Indian cemeteries, and they didn't have no respect whatsoever for the Native Americans up into that area.
no.
I mean, absolutely none. You know what I'm saying?
And it's at the same time when all that was going on, we're constantly pushing west. We're constantly going west.
Right.
And there ain't but just so many ways to get west.
Right.
That's about the time old Lewis Clark come into the picture.
Right.
And they basically granted them to go out there and see what you could find. How far can we go? This is right after that Andrew Jackson, Louisiana Purchase.
Right.
That's when all this is going on. Like I said, I
How
love
come our president is all over the Frenchmen right now, as far as them being our allies?
Yeah.
I thought we run the French out of Louisiana pertaining to the Louisiana Purchase. Huh? What happened there? Is the French our allies? According to Trump, it is.
According to some of my uncles, they ain't, and they are. Some of them agree that, yeah, we helped them, and they kind of helped during the war, and some of them said.
Well, during Desert Storm, they wouldn't help us.
And during World War II, some of them you couldn't trust. They was working for the other side. The little Nazis and stuff.
Really?
Stuff like that. So it depends on how much you believed in what was going on over there. But in the Civil War, yeah, French played a part in that too.
They did.
Yeah, they played a part in the Civil War. They come in through Canada. That's why you got so many French Canadians.
Oh, I see.
And
Down around Toronto and stuff.
They knew that pretty well sewed up down below in the South, so they had to figure out another way to get weapons and stuff, to help South.
Everybody and their brothers tried to come in to the Continental, to the new land here and take over, haven't they?
I'll tell you something
They've tried to take us over, hadn't they?
I'll tell you something I've never heard argued. And I've looked at it, I've dwelled on it, studied on it, researched on it, practically wrote theses on it, my opinion on it, and there was never, ever, once, ever in history a Southern registered ship that brought slaves to America. Not on the record books anywhere. and they blamed the Southerners for having the slaves.
Right.
The Yankees went and got them and sold them to us.
I know. I know. They had more slaves up in the north than the South ever thought about.
And then they turned around and told us we couldn't have them. You know.
You know the reason why the South lost the war, don't you?
Well,
We went broke. We didn't cross all the T's and dot all the I's.
well, I mean, guys down here was fighting with pitchforks and clubs, you know, and shotguns that only shoot.
They was more educated
Yeah,
up there.
exactly.
And and to this day,
Modern
you can
machinery.
still make more money and do better for yourself up north. Now it costs more money to live up there, but to this day, they're still more educated in the northern region than they are the southern region. Why is that?
It's the way of life. It's the way it is, and you find that anywhere. I've been to Utah, California, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, Oklahoma. I've been everywhere. I've been all out through there, and it's just there's just different aspects of the way of life.
Why did they call this the Bible Belt area?
It's because of all the
All the churches?
exactly.
And it's some of the hard-headedest people in the world. You know it. They're all fighting against each other. Don't
Yeah.
nobody want to pull together.
The kick I get out of that is you got all these big churches, and if you go get out toward Memphis sometime,
Oh, I know.
and look over on
They
your
got a
left,
cross down there you can see for 100 miles.
look on your left and your right, and the churches keep getting bigger as you head toward south.
Between the churches and the banks. Tell me where the money is.
Exactly. And
Tell me where the money is. It's got to be in the banks and it's got to be in the churches because they build one on every other corner every other day.
well, that's to stop the other things from being built.
Is that what it is?
There's other things that they
These
don't want.
pagan churches, man, they come up a dime a dozen, don't they? Just like these banks. Huh?
I was actually raised in a church, and I do believe, I do believe in.
Oh,
in,
I love the Lord.
in certain things.
This
you
is
know.
your coffee. I'm sorry. I love the
I
Lord
believe
Jesus
in certain
Christ.
things, but there's, like I said, I don't need 500.
They've commercialized it.
I don't
The
need,
very thing that Jesus told them not to do is the very thing that they have done.
I don't
They
need-
have commercialized
I don't
churches.
need 500 hypocrites telling me the ones. I don't need 500 hypocrites that slip in and out of the liquor store at Saturday
Right.
night and Sunday morning there in church, getting repented. I don't need them people to hold my hand and say, "Brother, it's okay to pray."
Are wife swapping? Don't they claim that Dyer County has more divorces than all 95 counties in the state of Tennessee? That they hold the highest rank down there in Dyer County?
I ain't heard that one.
Uh
That's a new one.
huh. Where's Sleepy Hollow at? Is that down there by Brownsville?
Don't know. I've heard of it. I just don't know.
You know what Skull Bone was famous for, don't you? Fighting, fist fight,
Yeah, it's fist fights. Yeah.
fist fight.
Yep. Something to do with some Irish folks.
Uh huh.
They used to knock out, drag out.
Oh
fights,
yeah. Oh yeah. I wonder where. You said you've studied a lot of the history around here,
I love history. I love it.
and you've looked at Union City. I wonder where Kenton.
I never got that. Other than the fact that
Got into that.
Crockett,
How about Trenton?
Crockett had some connections over in that area.
Right.
Uh,
And the Jews owned a lot of Beach Ridge down in there.
uh,
The Jewish community. The Schatzes.
as I
You probably heard of the Schatzes?
as I travel now, I hear of more and more things that I didn't know.
Right.
And you hear the folklore, and you hear the different things. And
How about Trenton? Where did
legends.
Trenton come from?
don't know.
Trenton.
I don't know.
Tren. It was a trend. kind of like Jack had a son that come from England, and the next thing you know, it was Jack's son. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these sons, Jefferson, Robinson. That's where all that started.
I don't know.
Trenton.
People's going to believe what they're going to believe, and that's the way it is. You can't change your mind. I mean, they're raised.
They've been indoctrinated.
Exactly.
They've been
raised,
indoctrinated.
They're raised that way, and that's the way they're going to be. And I'm not one to go poking at them and telling them they can't do that or not do that. But
Well, they've sure
No.
come after me because of me being flamboyant with what way I feel, and
I generally,
and what-
I generally
and
keep
what
my,
I believe
yeah, I
in.
generally keep my opinions to myself about
Do
things.
you?
Yeah, generally. But sometimes I'll see something. If it takes a bully to stop a bully, then I'll become that bully. That's the way I
so
look at it.
you support the NRA. The only way to stop a bad person with a gun is a good person with a gun. You support the NRA, don't you?
Not that, but
That's their theory.
I believe in.
That's
believe
their
in-
ideology.
yeah, I
that
believe
the
in
only
rights.
way to defeat a bad person with a gun is with a good person with a gun. That's their ideology.
You know, there's other ways, but some things I don't believe in. Some things I do believe in.
Would you have ever thought in a million years? How old are you?
58.
58. You're the same age as me. Would you have ever thought that this country would have turned so raw?
It's
All
the-
these shootings,
it's
go
the-
in and
it's-
massacre children and go into churches and
That's-
just do bodily harm to people that really and truly hadn't done nothing to those folks.
That's because these primary.
Nothing.
That's because these primary secondary. Your primary institutions in America used to be your home. That's what used to be your primary institutions.
They tore those apart whenever the conglomerates come over here, and whenever the
Greed.
male had to not only work, but now the female had to work, and then the family institutions got tore apart,
Yeah.
and now we're going to let little Johnny or little Sally get raised up in a daycare center.
Yep. And then you expect.
Then you
the
took
daycare-
prayer out. You took prayer out,
And you expect the daycare center to do what the mom and dad did.
and there's no way that they can.
They can't do it. They can't do it.
There's no way that they can. I
So-
don't care how
so-
much they think that they care about that child.
So now they think that the primary institutions are like the schools, and the schools were always your secondary institutions.
Well, now the schools is being run like a military compound base.
They're seeing now that the parents don't have time because if you're going to eat and survive, you gotta. Sometimes both parents have to work.
Just about all the time.
And they ain't got time to raise the kids that they had. You know, even though they have good intentions.
I think our democracy's falling apart.
Yeah,
I really do.
I don't.
I think our democracy's falling apart, and the reason why is because we have been contaminated. We have been sabotaged from the inside out, pertaining to all these big conglomerates that's come over here. It's kind of like the little mama papa farming institutions. I can remember whenever everybody and their brother had a red belly Ford, and they farmed anywhere from 35, 40 acres up to maybe 150 acres, to providing who you was. And just about everybody had 2 or 3 old milking cows, and some of them had 25 and 30 milking cows. And all of a sudden, you know, the future farmers or the EPA or whatever it was started loaning out a bunch of free money, and then all of a sudden the people up there on Wall Street raised money up to 18, 19, 20, 22%, some of them paying 24%, and it freaking caused the little farmers to go out of business, and what took over? The big conglomerate farmers. And now, if you're not farming at least 4,000 or 5,000 acres, you're not really considered much of a farmer.
Yep.
If you don't have big, I'm talking freaking tractors big enough to run plumb through that house.
Yeah. Conglomerations and institutions run them things now.
A planter now costs you over $250,000.
Yep.
A planter. Probably a combine costs you $1 million if you bought a good one.
I've seen just about every side of things that you can see, and I've just formed my own opinions about things. That's the way I am, and I'm just if that makes me an individualist, I'm an individualist.
What's happened to us though? We've been taken over from the inside out, haven't we? We've been sabotaged. We've been sabotaged.
Some ways it
All these cultures.
some ways it should piss you off, and in some ways it should make you
Do
happy.
you know how many?
know?
Do you know how many mosques is in America right now? Muslim mosques, over 2,000. 2,000 mosques. There's places up in Dearborn, Michigan, that they've changed the signs, and they're not even in American. They're in Arabic.
You need to get with Virginia and talk with Virginia before she passes away.
What's happened?
Get with Virginia and talk with Virginia before she passes away, and then find out. Talk with Joe.
We've been taken over, haven't we?
Like I said, there's people I don't.
One of the greatest nations in the world, America. Probably bigger and stronger than Rome ever even thought about being. And if we don't watch, our dynasty that our grandfathers and grandmothers and our ancestors bled and fought for is going to be taken right out from underneath us. Huh? And I truly believe that if we didn't get the president that we have in there right now, Trump, if we would have got Clinton, they would have probably, you know, they was steadily slipping towards taking church stuff out of people's yards and complaining about all this stuff as far as the 3 wise men and Jesus and lascivity scenes. If we didn't get Trump back in power, pertaining to him having somewhat of a Christianity background, I'm thoroughly convinced that within a matter of days or weeks or months, they would be going to everybody's house, knocking on your door, going in your home, and not necessarily taking your guns, but taking your Bible away from you. Your Holy Bible, which is our faith. This is the faith that our ancestors believed in and was willing to die for.
A lot of them did.
They sure did.
A lot of them did.
They sure did.
Well, let me get
They sacrificed.
let me get my stuff.